This is not something that a decent human being could do.
Martha Stewart may have just turned one awkward dinner party story into something far more explosive, because the latest twist surrounding Meghan Markle is no longer just about what was allegedly said at one California gathering. It is about the possibility that there was a second private conversation that Meghan desperately did not want dragged into the spotlight. And before anyone starts treating this as confirmed fact, let's be absolutely clear. The supposed second dinner secret is being discussed as an allegation and speculation, not an established fact. But if even part of the story is true, the embarrassment for Meghan could be enormous, because this time the controversy is no longer simply about Martha Stewart criticizing her lifestyle ambitions. It is about what Martha may have overheard, what Meghan may have discussed, and why the response allegedly became so intense in the first place. That clip is important because it establishes the dynamic that made this entire controversy so irresistible to gossip watchers. Martha Stewart is not some newcomer looking for attention. She spent decades building a lifestyle empire, survived a very public legal nightmare, went to prison, came out, rebuilt her career, and became an even bigger cultural figure. So when someone with that history starts talking about another celebrity entering the exact world she helped define, people naturally listen. And Martha's comments about Meghan Markle landed because they were delivered without the theatrical outrage that usually makes celebrity feuds obvious. There was no screaming match, no dramatic accusation, no public meltdown. Instead, there was something much more dangerous in the world of celebrity gossip. A calm observation from somebody who appeared completely comfortable saying exactly what she thought. That line became the center of the controversy because Martha was essentially questioning the logic of the transformation itself. Actress, princess, homemaking guru. Three completely different public identities, suddenly being connected under one lifestyle brand. To Meghan's supporters, that could be viewed as unfair criticism. To her critics, it sounded like the most obvious question imaginable. But then came the dinner party allegation, and suddenly the conversation became much more personal. According to the account discussed in the original controversy, Martha said she had encountered Meghan after Meghan returned from the United Kingdom, and Martha suggested that she knew Meghan had been discussing aspects of the trip and what had happened around her meeting with King Charles. That is where this story became combustible, because royal family conversations are not ordinary celebrity gossip. Any suggestion that private discussions involving King Charles were being repeated casually at a Hollywood gathering immediately raises questions about trust, discretion, and the fragile relationship between Meghan, Harry, and the wider royal family. And now comes the alleged second dinner twist that has pushed this story into even more sensational territory. The rumor mill has suggested that Martha may have been referring to more than one conversation, with speculation that details from another gathering could eventually surface and potentially complicate Meghan's explanation of what was discussed. Again, there is no verified evidence establishing that a secret second dinner happened in the way these rumors describe. But that has not stopped the speculation, because the original dispute created exactly the kind of vacuum where gossip thrives. One side says the account was wrong, another says it was misunderstood, and suddenly everyone wants to know what was really said when the cameras were nowhere around. This is the part that makes the alleged second secret so intriguing. If the original dinner story had simply disappeared, there would be no reason for anyone to keep talking about it. But the response itself gave the controversy oxygen. Once the account was challenged publicly, the story stopped being a passing remark and became a disagreement over credibility. And in celebrity culture, that is a completely different battlefield. You are no longer asking, what did Martha say? You are asking, who is telling the truth? And Martha Stewart has one enormous advantage in this situation. She does not need Meghan Markle's approval. She does not need to chase royal headlines. She does not need to convince the public that she belongs in the lifestyle world. She has already spent decades establishing that credibility. Meghan, meanwhile, is trying to build something new while simultaneously managing an extraordinarily complicated public identity. She is an actress, former senior royal, wife of Prince Harry, mother, producer, and lifestyle entrepreneur. Every new project gets judged against all of those identities at once. That is why Martha's earlier comment about authenticity hit such a sensitive nerve. She was not merely asking whether Meghan could cook or decorate a table. She was questioning whether the audience believed the person presenting the lifestyle was genuinely knowledgeable about the world she she was entering. That clip captures the heart of the backlash. Critics argued that the smartest move would have been silence. Let Martha make her comment, let the internet react for 48 hours, and then allow everyone to move on to the next celebrity scandal. Instead, once competing versions of the dinner story appeared, the controversy became impossible to ignore. And that is where the alleged second secret becomes such a dangerous piece of speculation. If another private conversation were ever independently confirmed, it could completely change how people interpret the original dispute. It would not automatically prove Martha was right about everything, and it certainly would not establish every rumor circulating online. But it would make people ask whether the original controversy was only the visible tip of a much larger disagreement over what Meghan actually discussed after returning from Britain. The fallout became even more uncomfortable because the criticism was no longer limited to what happened at that dinner. The deeper issue was the warning about authenticity, and that warning suddenly looked far more significant once the private conversation controversy exploded. Martha Stewart had already made it clear that she believed anyone entering the lifestyle world needed to understand the subject matter and genuinely know what they were talking about. That standard was especially pointed because Meghan Markle was attempting to establish herself in precisely that territory, while critics were already questioning whether the transition felt natural or manufactured. Instead of allowing the criticism to disappear, the response surrounding the dinner story kept the spotlight firmly fixed on the same uncomfortable question: what exactly was said? Who heard it? And why did the disagreement become so intense? The alleged second dinner secret now gives critics another reason to revisit everything that happened. The original story was already controversial because Martha Stewart claimed she knew details about conversations surrounding the European trip, while another account disputed that interpretation and maintained that nothing beyond the family having a good time had been discussed. But once competing versions exist, curiosity becomes almost impossible to contain. People begin wondering whether there was another conversation that Martha remembered differently, whether something was overheard privately, or whether the entire controversy grew from an innocent misunderstanding that became much larger after public pushback. None of those possibilities should be treated as established fact, but the speculation itself has become part of the story. And this is where the public relations problem becomes almost impossible to ignore. A small comment can disappear. A disputed comment can become news. But a disputed comment followed by a public correction, competing accounts, and fresh speculation about another dinner can become a story with a life of its own. Suddenly, the attention that should have been focused on Meghan Markle's lifestyle ambitions is being redirected toward questions about private conversations and credibility. That is precisely why critics believe the response may have created more damage than the original allegation ever could have. Martha Stewart's position also makes the situation particularly awkward. She has spent decades building an identity around food, entertaining, homes, business, and lifestyle expertise. She has already experienced one of the most dramatic career reversals imaginable, survived a prison sentence, returned to the public eye, and rebuilt an enormous business. Her supporters therefore argue that she has little reason to invent an elaborate story about a dinner conversation involving Meghan Markle. Whether Martha Stewart's memory is ultimately proven correct or not, her reputation gives the allegation weight, and that is why every new detail attracts attention. The most cutting moment, however, came when Martha Stewart was asked about celebrities following her into the lifestyle world. She praised Gwyneth Paltrow, acknowledged her success, and then offered a very different response when discussing Meghan Markle. Rather than attacking Meghan Markle directly, Martha Stewart emphasized authenticity and knowledge of the subject matter. It sounded polite, but the implication was impossible for critics to miss. In gossip circles, sometimes the softest sentence creates the loudest reaction because the speaker does not need to say the accusation outright. The audience fills in the blank. That is why the alleged second dinner secret has become such a tempting storyline. If another credible witness ever confirms that a second private conversation occurred, the entire controversy could take another turn. It would not automatically prove every accusation, but it would raise new questions about what was discussed, what was remembered, and why the original disagreement became so defensive. Until then, the second dinner claim remains speculation rather than established fact. And perhaps that is the most frustrating part for everyone watching this unfold. Martha Stewart has already said enough to keep people talking, while Meghan Markle's response has ensured that the story refuses to disappear. What began as a comment about lifestyle television has now become a debate about authenticity. discretion, private conversations, and credibility. The real embarrassment is not necessarily one devastating revelation. It is the possibility that every attempt to close the story could create another reason for people to reopen it. And if another detail from that alleged second dinner ever emerges, the question will not simply be what Martha Stewart said. It will be why everyone was so determined to make sure nobody kept asking questions.